Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Unspun Yarn YouTube channel. I've got a very special guest today. Amy, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, I'm Amy, and my ASWAF blogging name is Amy Blackfire. That's AEMY. I just started the blog, and I'm working on my premiere essay right now that is actually about Sun Wukong, the Monkey King in Tyrian, which is a little bit of what we're going to talk about today. And I'm very excited to become a hashtag content creator in the community. And I'm Amy L in the chat. And I am really excited to share some thoughts with you guys. Nessie and I have already talked about this a little bit, and I think we're going to have a really good time. So
I know, right?
the link to my blog is in the
Yeah,
description.
go ahead. Sorry, Amy.
The
Sorry.
link to my Twitter and blog is in the description. That's all. Last plug. Go ahead, Nessie.
Oh, yeah, that's fine. I was going to say that, and I'm like, I wish we had recorded our conversation last night because it was just fantastic.
It was bananas. that's gonna be the first of many. If you want, yes, you can do a monkey pun drinking game with this stream because I'm gonna make at least 2 more. So
at least. So let's see. We've got a bunch of great people in the chat today. Let me give some shout outs. We've got John Webster, of course, my little brother's there. Chrissy of Old Stones, Lady Leaf.
Nice to see Alicia Kingston too. Hey.
Yes, AK in the chat today. Good to see you, girl. Kate's in the chat. Chrissy. Yeah, got Flores the Fox. Hey, good to see you. All right, got a nice group here today. Everybody's ready to dig into some, delicious Sun Wukong monkey shenanigans. So
yes, it's gonna be so much fun. Yeah, so you want to just go ahead and get started, Nessie? Let's dive right in.
Yeah, let's go ahead. So we were, as you know, my other series have shown, there's a lot of animal symbolism in A Song of Ice and Fire, and pan culturally, pan mythology. Every culture everywhere has got some type of animal mythology going on. So once we got to came to monkeys, because there's just a heavy influence in it's all over the globe, from the Far East to Central and South America, across Africa. It's global. The only way, even there's a few little tropes in European mythology, but just because of, I think, osmosis. So what began your love affair with Sun Wukong and Journey to the West? Let's go.
Yeah,
that's a good place to start.
Yeah, I'm a PhD student of Chinese literature, and I specifically study the last 2 dynasties of China, the Ming and Qing. And Sun Wukong, this character, comes from Journey to the West, which is a novel from the Ming Dynasty. From it says circa 1592, Chinese print culture. It's hard to know exactly. That's basically the earliest copy we have. It's very possible that there were versions out before that, and it's attributed to Wu Cheng'en, but pre-modern Chinese authorship is very hard, and people like to say that they're sure that this Chinese man wrote this. And a lot of times novels, especially in early Chinese literature, it wasn't seen as a very respectable venture. So a lot of men would not put their name on novels. So this is attributed to Wu Cheng'en, but we are not positive about that. So basically my interest in Sun Wukong came from, I had to actually read a couple of chapters in one of my master's classes in the original Chinese, which I know is not what everyone could do. There's some English translations out there. And after that, I started being interested in kind of this very playful, witty, but also tricky in a semi-leaning evil, but kind of gray area way. And Sun Wukong really embodies that. And he embodies also this wisdom, right? And we're going to talk a lot about demonic monkeys, but what's interesting is in the East, like in India and in China, monkeys are also a symbol of being wise. So there's a lot of duality here that I think is working with monkeys, and Sun Wukong is exactly that duality. He starts out raising literal hell and in heaven. He's basically, getting in trouble all the time, and then he's sent on this journey to the West, quite unwillingly, by the Buddha and the celestials in heaven. They force him to go. And when he comes back, he's really gone through a lot of character growth, and he's for lack of a better term, a good monkey now, right? And then he achieves Buddhahood. And so it's kind of like a redemption arc, if you will, for Sun Wukong. And he's just pervasive. He's everywhere. Like, we're going to talk a little bit about the Asian, many different representations of him. The first one is literally Son Goku from Dragon Ball. His name, Son Goku, is Sun Wukong. It's just the Japanese version of that name. And he has a monkey's tail. He rides on a cloud, and he has fights with a pole. That's all Sun Wukong. So he's really popular. Technically, my first exposure to Sun Wukong was when I was in elementary school, when I first started watching Dragon Ball. But I didn't know that until much, much later. And I didn't academically understand the impact of that until I became a PhD student. So that's what's sparked my interest, is kind of unknowingly was Goku from Dragon Ball, and Dragon Ball Z, of course.
Well, the wise monkey, the tricky monkey, the trickster figure of the monkey has been in literature. It has been it's like embedded in pop culture, media, everything from,
Yeah, and AK actually mentioned the series on Netflix, and I agree, it is cheesy, Alicia. It also, what I like about that is it changes. Spoiler alert, I guess. It's been out since 2017.
We're not spoiler babies.
We are not spoiler babies. You and me are our team. No spoil. We don't care about spoilers. It replaced Monkey. They still call him the Monkey King, but instead he's a really hot Thai Australian actor. And I do not mind that change at all. It is very nice to look at. He acts the part really well. He's a little bit not, even though she Alicia mentions that it's silly, his character is actually not as much of a tricky, silly guy as usual. They kind of make him a little bit more respectable. But I think it's a good version if you just want to kind of get used to the characters. And there's always one character that's actually left out. So Sun Wukong goes with the monk, and then there are 3 other fallen celestials: Pigsy, Sandy, and then the other one, which is, he's always forgotten. He was like the son of he's a dragon prince, a Naga, if you know what that means.
Right, a Naga, an enlightened being. So, like last night, we were discussing how monkey came into the cultural zeitgeist in the United States in the mid to late 60s as monkey. The original story had said was, he wasn't like the main figure in the Journey to the West. He was like this one of the entourage, and it wasn't until Monkey in the 60s that he was elevated to like the hero, at least or the more interesting character, the one that he was always the most popular character in China. But what was interesting is that Journey to the West emphasizes their mission, which is to go to the West, to India, to get Buddhist sutras, Buddhist scriptures, and bring them back, and that would help enlighten the people of China. But so the Chinese version really emphasizes, and each episode or each chapter is an episode. They have to, on their way to the West, they have to fight a different demon, and usually it's Monkey who outsmarts them or just is more strong, and he defeats them. So in I believe it's 1947 or 46, in the mid-40s, Arthur Waley, who is a very, very famous sinologist, studier of China, and a famous translator, he significantly abridged, because there are, if I'm not mistaken, I believe this is one of the famous 100 chapter novels. I'm not positive, but it's either 40 chapters, 80 chapters, or 100 chapters when we're talking Ming Qing novels. So I believe it's 100. So there's all these episodes. He cut it down significantly. And what did he call it? Just like you said, Nessie, monkey, right? Monkey. So whenever George would have been hearing about Sun Wukong and hearing about Journey to the West, it would have been completely through the lens of Arthur Waley's interpretation and his translation and abridgment. Any episodes he learned about would have been the ones that Arthur Waley decided to put in. Right. George likes his history, but he also likes his history through media. Like he is heavily influenced by things like, the golden era of Hollywood, cultural, like the genre movies and the genre television shows through the 60s and the 70s. So you can really see those type of, like, he likes his history through a film lens, if that makes sense.
And he wouldn't have been able to consume Sun Wukong any other way. That was what was available to him. Whereas now, like, I was actually going to do a little show and tell. This is called Transforming Monkey. And it's this is an actual scholarly book by Hongmei Sun, the same last name, no relation. And so there are a lot of books that just focus on this character, and he is really prevalent throughout Chinese literature. And also, Jordy Jedi had a good comment about drunken monkey. And a lot of people have been talking about kung fu, and that's definitely the drunken monkey paw is a form of kung fu, and it's highly respected. It's up there with the tiger positions, the crane positions, and the drunken monkey is also seen as something that allows you to be quick, right? They're known for being very agile and quick, but also the drunken part, they're a little confused, like your movements are a little fluid, and they don't know exactly how you're going to strike, and you use your wit to stop the monkey.
It's very chaotic form, and that's something that we see very much in discussing the monkey, how it's just a chaos unleashed in some aspects, but at the same time there's the control, the wisdom, the learning, the journey, and imparting wisdom to others. So outside of the East, which the OG for the Monkey King is, of course, Hanuman from India.
Absolutely.
That's one of the OG versions. It's, thousands of years old. The Hindu.
Yes, and it's generally accepted by scholars that Sun Wukong is absolutely based off of Lord Hanuman, because Lord Hanuman's father is the wind god in mythology, and so Hanuman doesn't necessarily have control over the weather, but he has this association with wind. And so then for Sun Wukong to be able to fly through the sky, there's definitely something there. And I think, so if you want to learn about Hanuman, he's mostly in, and I'm going to do my best, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. It's really hard to say. Those are two they're extremely well-known Indian epics. Yes, very long. And he basically... He hangs out.
Devotee of Rama, so he's one of the main
of Rama, exactly.
Yeah, one of the main protagonists in the Ramayana, or the stories of Rama.
Yeah. So one of the main kind of tensions in the Ramayana is Sita, the wife of Rama, getting kidnapped and taken to Lanka, which is now Sri Lanka. And Monkey jumps all the way to the island of Lanka, and he goes there to save her. And he intentionally, here's another wit coming in, Hanuman intentionally allows himself to get captured because he wants to get all of his enemies together so he can take them on all at once, because that's so a Hanuman thing. It's also a Sun Wukong thing, right? Not being afraid of being against lots and lots of powerful enemies. So when he gets there, they light his tail on fire, hoping it will kill him. And so what does he do? He just jumps around, very agile, once again using the wind, and he sets all of the buildings on fire, and he grabs Sita and whisks her back to India. And then, of course, if you're playing the patriarchy drinking game, drink, because whenever Sita gets back, she has to prove her chastity and prove her innocence by walking through fire. So,
of course, that's how it's done, right?
Yes.
So
the
journey to the West. Well, we journey to the West was to actually go back to India to receive teaching. So it's very easy to see how the bridge from Hanuman to Sun Wukong is just like a direct thing, because that is the wisdom of the East that they were seeking. So it's very interesting that they would actually evolve one of the main characters as to being the being that brings enlightenment to China. So I thought that was a pretty cool art. And even older than Hanuman, back in the ancient of days in dynastic or pre-dynastic Egypt, we have one of the oldest legends of a monkey god, which is also very highly associated with wisdom and learning and teaching, is of course Thoth. Usually we will see Thoth with crane imagery. He's an ibis most of the time, which seriously lends into he was the god of the moon, but he was also the god of magic, learning, writing, wisdom, law. It was like, if it was important in Egypt, he was the guy who either invented it or wrote it down. Like, he was the god of the scribes. So his other aspect was like a seated baboon. and he's probably like an absorption of or an aspect of the god Bobby, who is the god of learning. He would be seated in like an upright position, and it's also like a fertility type creature because he's a creator god as well. He brought about the creation of all the other gods by lending fertility to the goddess Nut, who's like the mother goddess in Egyptian mythology. There was, by being the god of the moon, and female fertility is directly tied to the lunar cycle. He made a bargain to, hey, there's that bargaining aspect. Made a bargain so that there were 5 extra days, and on those, every one of those 5 extra days, the gods were able to be born from Nut. So you got Osiris and Horus and Isis. Isis, and crap, I can't remember the other two because
I can't help you. It's not Chinese stuff.
Right,
Chinese. But also this association with women and fertility and the moon. You know, woman. The moon is a woman, wife of sun. It is known. So
yes.
And in Chinese culture as well, there is Chang'e is a moon goddess, and her husband Hou Yi is heavily associated with the sun, because he shot down 9 of the 10 suns and saved the world from burning up. So there's this kind of day and night, sun and moon, yin and yang, you know, and fertility is specifically being associated with the moon and the menstrual cycle is very ubiquitous. And also that idea of this 2 sides to thing, right? It has the ibis head and then the baboon head, that duality, but it's not a negative duality, right? To be good, there must be evil and they must be balanced. So there's not a negative association with evil as much as we, you know, as kind of a Christian idea might have it, right? You don't want devils. You don't want, you know, demons. Lucifer was a traitor, this kind of thing. But then if you were to say, but Lucifer is needed, right? The devil, the Dark Lord is needed to keep balance between heaven and hell, right? And the Chinese see it that way too. And in Journey to the West, whenever Sun Wukong is going crazy in hell and making a big fuss, the king of hell reports him. He literally writes a bureaucratic report to the emperor in heaven. So heaven and hell work together in Chinese mythology, and in a lot of places, in a lot of cultures, death and life are seen as opposites that need to be balanced and together. Without death, you cannot have life. This kind of these ideas.
And that was another aspect of Thoth in Egyptian religion and mythology, is that he would travel as the god of the moon. He was at the right hand of Ra. He would travel with Ra during his journey through the underworld every night, and to help restore balance with his. And he was, of course, one of his main consorts was Mot, who is the Egyptian concept of order. So everything that it comes into creation comes through Mot to be ordered. And since they relied mostly on like a lunar calendar, Thoth would also have this sense of creating order out of, when would decide when, say, the religious rituals would occur. Their entire religious calendar was based off the lunar, so it was a very orderly thing, and Thoth was responsible for helping to maintain that order.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting that they do. Everywhere we've looked, that we have this duality when it comes to the monkey. And we can look at it as like monkeys are, or like the closest thing that we as human beings can see our face in. I mean, monkeys have been anthropomorphized for
yes, and something we talked about last night was in the 70s, this obsession with teaching specifically chimps sign language. And my mom's ex-husband actually worked at the University of Oklahoma, worked in this chimp psychological project. And Jane Goodall, of course, was very famous at the time. And we've obviously realized that anthropomorphizing them does not give them a better life. And in fact, when they're released into the wild, they're unable to take care of themselves and socialize as monkeys because they were raised to try and be human. And I think one of the things that we really learn from monkeys is how close we are to animals and how we try to make this distinction between us and them. And we're going to talk about Planet of the Apes later, but how, the line is pretty thin. They use tools. They have hands just like us. They show emotion in their face. They laugh. That's something we'll talk about, is the association with giggling, laughing, having a good time, entertainment with monkeys, and their wit and their trickery, right? So
they're our closest mirror to ourselves that we can see. It's like there, but for this, the speech is generally one of the big things that humans have used to differentiate between between themselves and apes. Also, of course, walking upright is like a big thing. So when you see something like a person who is more hunched or twisted, if they also will take that hunchback as a aspect of the monkey god or the monkey from legend, because they're not upright. They're bent over. So that's another clue that you're talking about one of the monkey creatures. Or
and when you see those evolution charts, right?
You
start to get standing up straight, right? And then I would argue we're actually in a lot of ways getting stupider, dumber, whatever. No, it's not a word. But it's kind of interesting that we have this linear idea of evolution and of progression when, in fact, a lot of Asian cultures and many other cultures talk about a circular, just like history. We seem to be repeating the same mistakes over and over again. So there are a lot of, I think, ways we could look at these issues kind of a little bit more meta and open about these things.
That's the same with the Central American mythology and philosophy, is that everything is a circle and everything repeats itself. And one of the keepers of the calendar, the Mayan calendar, is the howler monkey gods, which they're just bringing order out of chaos again. And they are also the traditional enemies of what's known as the hero twins. And in the Mayan mythology, the hero twins are what brings about the creation of the world. So they act as antagonists, but not necessarily enemies. So what they're doing is they're imparting wisdom. They're kind of challenging the hero twins for them to like pass certain tests, but not necessarily being oppositional to them. So
yeah. And if I could just talk a little bit about monkeys in Buddhism too, since we kind of hinted a little bit when we were talking about Sun Wukong, I mentioned Buddhism a lot, and his name actually Wu and Kong, Wu, in this case means to become enlightened or awakened, and then Kong is emptiness, which is a really big thing in Buddhism. Basically, everything is empty, so we should not be attached to anything. And then, being awakened means achieving nirvana, which, is a great band. But we use it a little colloquially wrong. We say, oh, that'd be nirvana, like it'd be a great experience. Nirvana in Sanskrit literally means to extinguish a flame. You feel nothing. You are space dust. And that's what I'm Buddhist. That's what we Buddhists want. We don't want suffering. We don't want to have to live and die. We want to get out of the rebirth cycle and go to nirvana, which is nothingness. So Sun Wukong in his name already hints at this enlightenment. And actually in Buddhism, there's this thing called the Jakata Tales, and it's a very, very large collection of stories of the Buddha in previous incarnations. So he's a different type of a man or a woman or a non-binary individual, or he's some type of animal. So then one story is called The Monkey and the Water Demon, and the Buddha is a monkey king, right? Once again, we're Monkey King. Could be also a Sun Wukong reference, who knows? I mean, these are old tales. So he lives in this land of 80,000 monkeys. And he tells all of his monkey followers, if you see anything unusual, don't eat or drink it. Come to me and ask me about it. So they're walking around doing monkey stuff, having a good time. And they come up to a pond and it looks strange. And they remember what their monkey king, who's the Buddha, said. And so they don't drink it. And then this water demon rises out of the pond and screams at them, I'm going to eat you. I'm going to eat you. So they realize, oh, he was right. And so the monkey king comes as the Buddha and says, you won't eat us. I will beat you. And he said, how can you beat me? So the Buddha goes over, once again, witty little monkey. He breaks the bamboo and he makes them all straws. And so they don't have to touch the water, but they get a nice drink and they're thirst is quenched, and they all leave home safely. All the monkeys are fine, and the Buddha has shown his compassion and shown his wit with this story. So this story kind of plays on this idea of monkeys as being smart and a little tricky, right? He basically tricked the water demon, and also shows once again talking about how the Buddha saves other beings in his past life and is already enlightened, right? And keeps being reborn so he could help more people.
Right on.
And this is a little off topic, but I found a cryptid called devil monkeys. I'm interested in cryptozoology, so like Bigfoot, the chupacabra, the Jersey Devil, and supposedly, allegedly, all this is allegedly, there have been sightings of these devil monkeys that are 3 to 4 feet tall, and this has happened around Flagstaff, Arizona, as well as Colorado, Utah, and New Mexico. So if you're interested in that, you can search devil monkey cryptid. But I found that really interesting, and that even Americans are kind of, there aren't really monkeys in North America, but
there really are.
There might be something if you believe in cryptid.
It's quite possible, that, it's, hey.
Yeah. I don't shut the door on anything. I believe in the Yeti, so it's all real. It's all real unless you show me otherwise. That's how I go. That's how I do things. But yeah, that was just a random thing I put in the notes because I thought that was interesting.
Well, random cryptids, I'm down for it. My icon is basically like the biggest cryptid of all. So,
exactly. For all of you that loves dragons, you love a cryptid because people don't think they exist when we all know they do. So do unicorns, also a cryptid.
So why not demon monkeys as well?
So why not demon monkeys? Exactly. But luckily, from what I read, there haven't been any sightings reported in the 2000s. So we might be free of these devil monkeys.
Well, who knows? Maybe all the chupacabras ran them off, or who knows? Maybe they just look like you and I. Maybe we know a demon monkey in life. Who knows?
So do you want to go on to what probably a lot of people are here for, which is monkeys in Aswaf?
Well, are there monkeys in Aswaf?
Are there little demon monkeys pulling the strings in King's Landing in Aswaf? I don't know.
Could be. So yeah, like the biggest, obvious, most, in your face references is every Tyrion reference is somewhat tied with the demon monkey, the twisted demon monkey, the grasping monkey, hairy monkey. There's always some type of monkey references all around Tyrion. And unlike the show, which had, the wonderful actor, Peter Dinklage, the book description of Tyrion is not very flattering. He's hunchbacked. He's somewhat stooped over, which is like, oh, he can't stand up. He's not able to stand upright. That really, really plays into the monkey trope. And
absolutely. Yeah. And also this association with mummers monkeys. They're constantly tumbling and making people laugh. And we know, George got a little bit of some complaints about how ableist it was, him kind of having Tyrion be basically a tumbling dwarf. And I don't even like that word, but in universe, there is no such thing as PC. And so it seemed like he was doing something with that. And he mentions it a little bit more in the 5th book, whenever probably one of my favorite quotes and the name of my upcoming essay is born a lion, not a monkey, which is what Tywin tells Tyrion when he sees him tumbling. He's left Casterly Rock, and Tyrion says one of his uncles, it doesn't say which one of his uncles was teaching it, and he was having such a good time. And then his father gets back, and you know how Tywin's main thing is being afraid he's being laughed at. And so He thought, I can't have a tumbling dwarf as my son. And so he said, you are born a lion, not a monkey. And as we'll talk about, monkeys and lions may be the same thing.
Yeah, so if you're born under the sign of a lion, you might also be born under the sign of a monkey.
Exactly. And I think also there's a lot of, I'll just throw out a couple more in there. Whenever Tyrion escapes to Essos, he calls his name himself YOLO, and he thinks to himself, it sounds like a name you might give a monkey. So he even associates himself with a monkey. And
Right.
Cersei has a really kind of disgusting dream where she's naked and Tyrion's naked, and I wonder about the connotations there. But she says that he is hairy, looking more of a man, more like a monkey than a man. So Cersei has very negative associations with monkeys. She thinks Selyse is like a grasping monkey, right? So just as Tyrion is grasping for Casterly Rock, something that he can never have, according to Cersei, that's Jaime's in her mind, or her own, right?
Yeah.
And so she sees it as this little lustful, twisted demon monkey, right? Who's going to take away, also take away her attention, Daddy's attention from her too. She wants to be seen as Tyrion Writ woman, whereas Tyrion is Tyrion Writ small, right?
Yeah, they're all really grasping to become their father, to step in their father's shoes, and none of them ever really, they never feel like they've ever quite made it. So, Alicia wanted to ask us, had a question about that. Monkeys and lions, the same? Explain yourself. I am intrigued.
We won't bury the lead. We'll talk about it.
Just a quick note on that. When looking at the Chinese zodiac as well as the Western zodiac, which we're all mostly familiar with, the constellation of the monkey occupies the same space in the Chinese zodiac as the lion does in the Western zodiac. So literally.
Yeah. And for those of you that you are born a lion and a monkey, yes. And so for those of you listening that hopefully your animal. I'm a chicken. But it depends on what year you're born versus, what kind of month and time you're born. So a lot of times people they use the word zodiac for Chinese zodiac, and they don't necessarily see them as connected, but they're both using essentially constellations and time to essentially put personality traits on people, right? And so the monkey, what do you think the sign of the monkey means in the Chinese zodiac? It means you're witty. It means you're a little tricky. It means maybe you not lie, but maybe you're not as straightforward as someone who is born a dog, right? Very loyal, very honest, probably loyal to a fault, right? Whereas the monkey is also very ambitious, grasping in the Chinese zodiac. So all of these associations we're talking about, they come from somewhere, and they keep, the monkey might get more associations, but the monkey never loses these older associations, which I find just fascinating, that we instead, we kind of just keep rolling down the hill with associations, and we're like clay gathering the straw, and we never, you never leave anything behind.
No, we just obtain more and more and more.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like we were talking about grasping and the monkey grasping. So one thing that is like a myth or a cultural myth is the monkey's paw. Has anyone, you've read the story of the tale of the monkey's paw? It is this item, much like a genie, that will grant you 3 wishes. But it's one of those things, be careful what you ask for, like any other of the wishes. They never turn out exactly the way that, you want or you expect. There's always some kind of twist or not getting exactly what you wanted, or the way
it bites you in the butt.
It bites you in the butt every time.
Yeah.
Be careful of wishes. So yeah, the grasping monkey paw is also another one of those associations with bargaining, mostly bargaining. How do you, using the gift of gab, which is one thing I think is what we're talking about with the wittiness of the monkey and being able to talk his way. Not only he gets himself in trouble, but then he's also always able to talk himself out.
What Aswaf character does that? Like with the mountain clans, or when he's in Erie, and I can't think of anything.
I've never read a character like that. And of course, what is Tyrion most known for is is his wit, his gifts of gab.
Yes, and just like with the monkey, it's not physically strong, and it needs to use its wit to gain advantage. And so there's a story. I'm not sure where it comes from. So this is just I'm pulling this out of from what I've heard, which is that a tiger,
the Aesop's fable.
I think it might be Aesop's fable of the tiger who or lion. There are different versions. The monkey says, "You can't eat me, because all the other animals in the forest are afraid of me. I'll show you." And he sits on the tiger's back, and the tiger walks, and all the animals flee. They're so afraid. And the monkey goes, "See, I told you. They're all afraid of me." And so, okay, so the tiger goes off and leaves him alone. But we all know that they were afraid of the tiger. But the monkey was able to use its wit to get out of being eaten and to make sure that at least that tiger wouldn't return and try again. Right. Unless he finds out he's been fooled, in which case he might want to super revenge on the monkey.
He's kind of quick.
Yes, exactly. Very agile, very quick. And as we'll also talk about, this kind of idea of the wise monkey, we have the three wise monkeys from Japanese culture. And so we have the hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil, right? And the emoji keyboard we have on the iPhone, which comes from Japan, has those emojis, and it's completely gotten into our nomenclature. We're used to saying these kinds of things. And when I was little, there was the song, "Three little monkeys jumping on the bed. One fell off and broke its head." So there's also monkeys like being silly, and then basically consequences coming down, and you crack your head open, right? The reason they pick monkeys is because they're playful and because they might take risks. So yeah, monkeys are heavily associated with lots and lots of different kind of imagery at the same time. And that playfulness, I think we see that in earlier Tyrion. I think he's starting to go dark side in the 5th book. So it's just turning into using his wit to hurt people, which I'm not okay with. But I think,
Tyrion might be going down, he's got to spend some time with, the King of Hell before, he's able to come back up.
Yes, he needs that redemption arc like Sun Wukong needed.
Or let's say getting better arc,
getting better arc.
Yeah, getting
he has a lot
better.
to make up for.
Yeah, he does. He's got
and also, the small folk call him directly the little twisted demon monkey. And as he in A Clash of Kings, as he's burning small folk dwellings to make room for this battle, which, when the lords play their Game of Thrones, the small folk are hurt the most. He thinks, he becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. He thinks, let them go and say what a twisted little demon monkey I am. I'll be the monster that they want me to be, right? Kind of like Beast from Beauty and the Beast a little bit. He just decides to turn into a total asshole because everyone thinks he is, kind of thing. And so that's kind of the beginning of Tyrion's dark side, goes with accepting this demon monkey imagery. But we all know that as we've talked about, the monkey's also wise and can be good. It's not necessarily evil.
Right. So like Hanuman, who set the village on fire with his tail, it was for a good cause. He had his reasons for doing that. Yeah, I set the palace on fire with my tail, but I saved Rama's bride.
Exactly. And he was the most trusted advisor and helper to Rama. And Rama is a big deal in Hindu mythology. So Lord Hanuman becomes a big deal. And they even have this song, I'm going to just scroll up so I can find it, called the Hanuman Chalisa, which is a devotional song from the 1500s about Hanuman. And supposedly singing it brings Lord Hanuman's protection on you. So he's also a protector god as well. And Tyrion does protect King's Landing, however problematic it might be. And his views on sex workers in particular and women, I could do really feminist rage about for hours. But, he is, in many ways, he uses his wit to protect people with the chain and with the wildfire, these kinds of things. And even Cersei, admits we'd be dead without you, basically. Right. But if we're done talking about Tyrion, I'd like to talk a little bit about Victarion and how much he hates monkeys.
Oh, that is some of the most hilarious chapters in all of A Song of Ice and Fire is Victarion and his constant battle against the monkey poop.
Yes. It's hilarious to us and the crew. He's the only one not getting the joke, and that's kind of the point of the chapter, really.
Right. Yes. He's just constantly, these monkeys are just constantly getting the best of him, it's like his ship is plagued with all of these demon monkeys. And he's just like, the one thing that he shares in common with Tywin is he doesn't like to be laughed at. He doesn't trust laughter because he associates with Euron and his, how he's always, his attitudes and his behavior.
And his straight up abuse of his brothers. They always feel in his shadow, in a very bad way. And I'll actually read a direct quote from the Iron Suitor from A Dance with Dragons, where this is some expedition. It says, talking about the monkeys, their antics never brought so much as a smile to the captain's face, though his crew would roar and hoot and whistle, right? So you just see this stern Ironborn man standing there. And Ironborn are sailors. They have fun, right? Right. So they're drinking and laughing, and Victarion is just all in his head, all about himself. He can't even think outside of himself to find monkeys silly, which everyone finds monkeys silly.
Well, think about, the Ironborn and their pirate imagery, and every pirate ship or every movie that you've seen, there's always a crew member who's got like a pet monkey who's just capering around. He's kind of like almost part of the crew, because he'll do something like he'll go steal the keys, or he'll do some kind of chaos.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about Abu later. Don't worry, people, about monkeys stealing things. So, yeah.
I'm surprised you didn't bring it up from Pirates of the Caribbean, and the Black Pearl was.
Yes, also the monkey. Yeah, a very heavy association with pirates, which I think is why it's extra funny. George would know these associations. That's why I think it's extra funny that the captain of a pirate ship, a fleet, of a ship, and kind of a whole fleet, is not there for it at all. And also this association, he associates them very heavily with filth, right? With the feces and it says something like it comes raining down from the mast, which is just really gives you quite the mental picture.
Quite an image, yes.
And he called them demonic, right? He said Victarion had forbidden his men to bring any of the demonic creatures aboard the ship, right? Oh, Jack.
I named the monkey Jack.
I totally forgot to put the pirates reference in there, but absolutely, there's that pirate, monkey and parrot association, right? This kind of, you have a shoulder animal that is right. Like the birds, especially when they parrot you when they speak, that brings laughter to people. And the monkeys, when they do human things, or street entertainers will play with the monkey, play with the monkey, do things with, we have mummers monkeys and Aswath. And so in the real world, historically, then they would come and have the monkey take out its little paw. And so you would give it money. And that's how you would give the money to the human entertainer. And he would let you pet the monkey or put the monkey on your shoulder. So there's this kind of interaction with monkeys and as entertainment and as also something that brings a smile, especially to children's faces. Children love monkeys. Sock monkeys, monkey, stuffed animals. Yeah. The symbol monkeys. Yes. So I was just about to say, Kelly, I'm glad you're here, Jaded Redhead, because we were just talking about Victarion and the Ironborn and piracy and monkeys. So you came just in time. I swear, talk about boats and she will come.
Yeah. So then when Tyrion is captured by the slavers and taken to Meereen, he is taken literally for entertainment purposes.
Exactly. And speaking to Jorah, one of the slavers said, your dwarf reminds me of a monkey. Can I keep him? George is beating us over the head with this. There are some things that I would call subtle in Gurm's writing, and this is absolutely not one of it. And he said outright, yes, there's something going on with monkeys there.
He's beating us over the head with a banana.
Yes, he is. Drink. He absolutely is. And he's definitely using a lot of these different associations that might seem contradictory, right? Like being evil and being wise, but it depends on how you use your intellect, right? If you use it for bad, then you're a trickster, and if you use it well, you're wise. So the monkey can be either one, depending on its kind of moral development.
Right, and I think one of the things that that really brings us home in Tyrion's arc is when he is having those conversations with young Griff on the Shy Maid. and he's at the same time he's being this wise, this mentor, this teacher type person, like they're playing Savas, they're talking history, and at the same time he's like manipulating this kid. He's just playing
Yeah.
with this kid because he's like, oh yeah, you think you're gonna go to Marine. Oh, hi auntie, yes, I'd like a dragon please, and oh by the way, my claim is better. So that is really just Tyrion doing like this double speak type thing.
Yes.
Tyrion didn't say that. That's not something that Tyrion is actually
I've
saying.
heard. Yeah.
I've heard, yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think your aunt is going to say? Not I'm saying this. What do you think your aunt
Exactly.
is going to say when you show up? So that just really gets those wheels turning, and it changes the entire course and plan of what young Griff and the Golden Company were going to do. They were going to, meet up with meet up with Dany and her dragons, and they were all going to be like one unified force that would invade Westeros. Of course, they didn't ask Dany what she wanted.
Well,
I
you
mean,
don't
what
ask women what they want, you assume, and you
you
just
just
keep going.
assume,
That's
yeah, you're
how life works, right?
be a dragon, so that's how that's going to work. Yeah, but
And I also think that specifically that scene of playing Savas and basically convincing young Griff to, jump the gun. I think what's interesting is that it's similar to that story I told earlier about the kind of the monkey using the tiger's own ego against himself, right? And the tiger assumes that he's right and that the monkey's wrong. So he uses younger's ego. He uses his youth against him. He also uses his need to prove himself as the true Aegon and the true heir to the Iron Throne and a Targaryen prince who deserves, who deserves to rule it all. And so I think that is another aspect of the monkey is it sees in you what your weakness is, be it ego, envy, lust, whatever it is, and uses it against you. And that's absolutely Tyrion, right? When he does that thing where he goes to Pycelle, Littlefinger, and Varys, right? He's a lot of ways he's using their kind of propensity for intrigue against them, right? Those are the three most scheming characters in King's Landing. Pycelle's not the smartest of the three, but I would say he's a schemer as well. And so I think that's also what's really interesting is that's kind of what George loves, which is the player becomes a played kind of thing, right? And then we also find out later that Tyrion was played by Littlefinger. So it's just players, and we know eventually Littlefinger is going to get played by the Queen in the North. So yes, my queen. Anyway, and it's also interesting that Sansa ends up marrying the demon monkey, which was not the original plan for George. It was to stay with Joffrey and have children. But I find it very interesting that, by what, what Jamie says, by what right does the wolf have to judge the lion, right? And here we have a wolf marrying a kind of lion monkey hybrid. Like, yeah, he's born a lion and a monkey, And
a monkey, yeah.
so hey, maybe a lion monkey can have rights to judge the wolf.
Those sigils eventually are just going to get all bogged down. But
yeah, and I love what they say is, oh, you in Westeros all think you're your sigils. I do like how you can kind of bring houses down a notch by being like, okay, you put something on a banner, like stop making it out like you're so mighty. So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're getting pretty close.
Just one more thing about Aswaf. Sorry. Obviously, I have to mention E.T. They specifically wear the monkey tail hat, and of course, you have their Long Night savior character is believe it or not, a woman. We get one savior character from the Dawn Age, and it's this woman with a monkey's tail. And you had kind of an interesting thought about tail and versus tail, Nessie, like different spelling.
Right. I mean, the classically, the Yiddish wear the little hat with a monkey's tail on the end of it. One thing that I've noticed in a lot of George's writing is that he really, really loves wordplay. So words, especially say over a 5,000 year span, you say tail, but it could also be tail, T-A-L-E, as opposed to T-A-I-L. So you have the story of the woman with a monkey's tail. So and that lends into one thing that the storytelling, the gift of gab, the use of their words, and their wit and their wisdom to make things happen. And what we have is Tyrion is going to be the person who, for lack of a better word, is going to be Daenerys's hype man. We saw that kind of play out in the show as he was her hand, but he's also this person who is kind of going ahead of her. He's already made very important contacts in places, along the way for her journey. For example, in Volantis, he's become very he's got messages from the widow of the waterfront for her, so he's made important contacts for her there. He was basically set on his way by Illyrio, so he really knows a lot about what's going on back in Pentos. He's got quite a tale to tell her about young Griff. So we're going to see Dany, and she's going to be getting all of these stories and these tales and her information. She's going to be depending a lot on Tyrion for these things, not being raised in Westeros. She's going to rely on him so much for understanding the political machinations, what people want, how people are thinking.
Yeah. And this is also how Rama relied on Hanuman to be his advisor and to do his kind of some of his dirty work, stuff that they couldn't do as in their position. But just wrapping up the monkeys in Aswath, I also want to mention that Lung was called by Lomas Longstrider as the land of 10,000 tigers and 10 million monkeys. And there's this association with kind of trade, and that the Summer Islanders are known for raising monkeys, and the Valyrians supposedly when Old Valyria was still an empire, they would specifically buy monkeys from the Summer Islanders and keep them as pets. So there's kind of this cross-cultural kind of interaction when it comes to monkeys as well. And so I really think that George is doing a lot. And it seems that that monkeys tend to be in the Summer Islands and in Lung. So there's kind of this also a global South association with them, which is, I think, also a little similar to our world as well. Other than other than Asia, we tend to associate monkeys being from the South.
Right.
So, I think I looked up the foremost countries that have them in our world. The ones that have the most monkeys are Brazil, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Madagascar, and Indonesia, right? So we have two African countries and, a Southeast Asian country, and then Brazil, right? A South American, all South,
Right, all below.
So, yeah, so I think he's trying to do this also, association with kind of movement and migration of monkeys, just like the movement and migration of peoples. I mean, the Summer Islanders are the most, perhaps other than, the Iron Islanders, the most seabound of people.
Right, and apparently they have maps that are even much better than anything that the Iron Islanders are able to produce, because they're able to explore places like Sotheros, and they'll go as far east as Ashai, as far west as west will go. We don't really know, because they're kind of very secretive about their sailing techniques. So they may have some fairly advanced techniques. So who knows? Maybe they know how to go east, you go west, or what have you.
Yes, exactly. You didn't think we'd pull out, but we did.
Yeah, pull it out. Go east, you must go west. So Tyrion the Monkey Cater. We're very close to the mid-roll, so I'm just going to go ahead and take a little break here. Little break, little station identification. So if you've made it this long in the chat, thank you very much. We appreciate your time. Hey, we love having I love having each and every one of you here. I wanted to take just a quick second. I've been getting multiple packages in the mail all the time. So of course I did another unboxing last night. It was kind of a little private thing, just for, the people in the Here Be Dragons Slack group. And I'll take a minute. If anyone in the chat is interested in joining our Here Be Dragons Slack, it is It's a great place to be. You meet some wonderful, interesting people. Everyone that you see in the chat is, maybe not everyone, but lots of names that are in the chat are in our Here Be Dragons Slack. And it's just a continuation of the fun that we have during these live streams where you're interacting with your YouTube friends, your internet friends. So it's just a great way to continue that. We have movie nights, we have watch parties.
Kelly's right. Warning, there will be late nights. Yeah. I stayed up so late on the Blue Whatever bar.
Yeah, we have our own virtual bar. We have each of our channels are represented so that we can have channel announcements. We workshop ideas. We get previews to all the art and imagery that we're going to use. So and just about at least once a day, Amy presents us with a poll.
I do. I'm such an extrovert and I need that feedback. I need to know what people think, and I want people to fight about things like waffles versus pancakes. These are the important questions we need to answer on the Slack. And the squares for the waffles used for syrup or butter. We need to know.
These are important questions, people.
Absolutely. So yeah, you'll see me. We also have a hashtag for the Well of Thirst, and we get to post all thirsty pictures of beautiful men, women, and non-binary individuals. It is, I'm very parched every time I look at that hashtag. So
all thirsts are welcome.
Yes.
And appreciated. Oh yeah. And what was it? Oh, the quiz.
We plan our Zoom hangouts too, which is fun. Oh yes, the Quizzard of Oz. Yes, we share each other. We share we all took our Harry Potter house quizzes and saw how many percentage of each house we were. I was mostly Hufflepuff and some Ravenclaw. So yeah, we've had a really good time.
Yeah, I was mostly Ravenclaw with Hufflepuff. It's fun. It's just some.
I think it's because I study literature and I love books. So I mean, obviously that it's going to give me a little bit of Ravenclaw, but then my extroversion and love of people kind of makes the puff a little bit stronger. So
yeah. Well, I mean, wit beyond measure is man's greatest treasure. So anyway, we just have a great time. We invite everybody to come join us. Oh crap. John, could you post our email address? I think it's we3dragons@gmail.com. That's the easiest way to get in touch with us. Because I know a lot of people don't, have all of the social media that we're all bogged down on. But you can also find us on Twitter. We have an official Here Be Dragons Twitter account. I have an official Unspun Yarn Twitter account. I think John's Webster Film is still John Webster Film. But we're just, we're on, you can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Instagram. I think, Amy, you found me on Instagram, didn't you?
I don't know if I actually have you on Insta, but you should definitely follow me on Insta because that's where I don't have family members on there. So I'm as much myself as I can possibly be on Insta. And in Twitter, I'm trying to promote my ass off stuff. So I'm not like too about my life necessarily, but Insta is where, yeah, you get all the doggy pictures and all my feminist rants and all that. So
yeah, where we can have our anonymity and be ourselves from,
And speaking of John Webster Film, though, I will be on there tomorrow to talk about Little Women with Braun Sterry.
Yes.
So that will be a lot of fun. I'm very excited for that. I saw it with my mom, and we had such a good time seeing it.
Yes,
I'll put more options of both in the polls now, Erin. I take your advice. I take your point. It's well taken. I'll give you more options. I'm only allowed to give 10 options because I don't have the paid version. So I've got to one was like, what's your favorite minor house? And then of course everyone's going to comment and be like, why didn't you put this? I only have 10. What can I do?
You just have to do the write-in in the comments section. So
yes, write in the comments. Yeah.
Everyone gets representation at Here Be Dragons. So we're like full on democracy. So, and yes, hyping up John's stream tomorrow, Little Women.
It should be fun.
It should be so good. I loved that movie.
I'm excited to rewatch it today because I saw it in theaters, but I'm definitely going to have to refresh. So
Yes, it was one of my favorite books growing up. It's
It
just a
was one of the
wonderful.
first books my mom read in elementary school, and that was when she realized she liked to read. So it was very special to my mom. And so we both, the feminist that raised me, I got to go see it with her, and we both got to talk about it. So it was really fun.
Yeah. Well, that's wonderful. Hey, I mean, it's great that you were raised by a feminist mom. Good on you. Great, great going there, Mom. You raised a good kid. All right. So back to the monkeys. So we've laid, I think, a pretty decent groundwork for like monkeys from mythology, and how, of course, there George is beating us over the head with all these images in A Song of Ice and Fire. But there's other representations of monkeys in popular media and culture that I think, we can kind of touch on and just um, go over with everyone. Talk about them with um, about things like, well, you really enjoyed his Dark Materials. I think that
I
was
Yes, that's absolutely one thing I want. So, spoiler alert for at least the first book of his Dark Materials. It's been out since the 90s, so get on it. And so there in
recently.
his Dark Materials, there's an I'm sorry, go ahead, Nessie.
Oh, I was going to say, and recently it was a series. It was a series on
Yes, there's an
HBO.
HBO series. So you can, if you're not a reader or if you just prefer the visual medium, you can definitely watch and the show is a lot more closer to the books than the movie was in some ways. And so in this, basically, it's an alternate universe where your soul takes the form of an animal. And when you're a child, it can shapeshift into whatever animal depending on your mood, right?
Right.
But when you become an adult, it solidifies into and it's called a demon, but it's Daemon. But Philip Pullman, who wrote it, says that it's pronounced demon. So these demons have to be constantly with the person, and they reflect the personality of that individual. So in this case, Mrs. Coulter, who is a kind of an antagonist character and an important character in the series overall, she has a monkey demon. And so this monkey demon is golden and beautiful and charming. And she, spoiler alert for the first book, uses this monkey to help her kidnap children for experiments. She's trying to find out a way to cut demons off from their humans so that basically they can create slaves or zombies that will do work for, and not have any feelings, basically. So this demon, it represents Mrs. Coulter's personality, which is manipulative, conniving, grasping, right? She wants something, she wants more power.
It reflects like her inner nature or her soul, if you will.
Yes, but also charming and beautiful, which she also is, right? So yeah, and witty. She's very, very smart, and she uses her wits to climb to power, essentially. It is her intelligence and her charming nature and good looks that is able to do that. Voice of Geekdom actually has a good comment on, I'm guessing he's talking about Damon, right? And how it's actually an Old English spelling. So that's interesting, Dan. I didn't know that. But yeah, so mostly then why I wanted to mention this monkey demon is just because literally all of the associations we've talked about are associated with this demon. It's witty, it's manipulative, it's grasping for power, right? And it'll make you kind of a deal with you, but it'll always bite you in the butt. So these are all the things that we've been talking about in the first hour of this stream coming together once again in a fantasy / steampunky kind of environment, right?
Right. Absolutely. So they grasping for power. Yeah. So we also have things in literature. Oh, you want to go ahead and talk about our Disney associations, because there's a couple of Disney associations, because why not? Disney has got its little paw in everything.
It's little monkey fingers in everybody's pies.
But they've got two fairly notable characters, especially from maybe from your generation. You grew up with these Disney movies, both, and I did too. Well, I didn't grow up with it, but I really enjoyed sharing these movies with my daughter, who was fairly close to your age. We have Abu from Aladdin, which is
Yeah.
going to be that um, trope of that little entertaining monkey. He's got the little fez hat on. He's in the marketplace all the time with Aladdin, causing havoc, causing chaos, making distractions. He's just doing those little witty monkey things, and he's
Yes.
like the
And
companion to the protagonist.
yeah, and something that I forgot to talk about was being impulsive, which also Tyrion has a little bit. And Abu is impulsive, and even when Aladdin meets Jasmine, and then and then she leaves, she finds out that Abu had stole her bracelet. So he was impulsive, and he was just used to it, and that's what you do, you steal. And Aladdin hadn't really, I mean, how do you say that to a monkey? Hey, I'm into this girl, please don't steal from her.
Right.
So Abu just did what he thought he should do, and then Aladdin gets onto him. So there's this kind of also impulsive nature of and also kind of getting into a routine of trickery and thievery, so much so that you do it automatically and you don't think about it. And that's kind of what Abu represents, is this kind of how people see Aladdin, which is street trash, right? And that's why he feels that he has to, once he finds the genie, use the genie's magic to make himself Prince Ali, right? This rich-looking man, when really Jasmine likes him as a person, and I think that's
this series of terrible bargains.
Yes. And also, you notice another way that Abu is impulsive. He goes, when he finds the lamp, and he says, "Don't touch anything else, Abu." And it's a cartoon, so Abu understands English, and he goes, "I won't," kind of like his look. And then he goes, and he just there with his little finger once again grasping, right, reaching for something as a monkey, and he taps it, and then they're a little screwed over at that point. So that's another sign of that kind of something shiny, you impulsively want to touch it, right? So I think that's Abu kind of is a play on many of these kind of sorry, I got so excited with my hands that I literally knocked my phone off. I'll be right back. There we go. I'm so excited about Aladdin that I was just hitting things with my hands. So I grew up with Aladdin, and that was one of my favorite movies, Disney movies growing up, along with Mulan. Wow, how could you have guessed that a Chinese freak would be into Mulan? But yeah, and so I think Abu really embodies a lot of these kind of traits that we've been talking about. And he also seems rather intelligent as well. He helps Aladdin out a lot, right? And he, like, when they're running away, he passes the lamp to Abu, and then Abu uses his tail to grab it, right? And they keep running, so they pass it back and forth. So, very smart, definitely.
Absolutely. Like, part of the team, his main associate, his helper, the person who helps him, in getting in and out of these adventures, his sidekick, Abu. So it's very much kind of like the partner in crime, so to speak. Not meaning, criminal activity. I mean, his ride or die is maybe a better way.
And Abu attracts the attention of people. Like you were saying, he helps distract them. So, oh, look, it's a monkey. And they're either like, ooh, get away, you filthy monkey. Or it's kids going, look, mom, a monkey, So it causes people are drawn to monkeys. They're interesting. We want to see what they're going to do next, And so I think there's this constant association with watching monkeys. And there's also the idea of monkey see, monkey do, right? They mimic us, they imitate us, and we find that we love to be imitated, right?
It's like we're trying constantly to teach them to do these things that we do. It's like, here, take this dance, or I'm going to play this music and you do this little dance, or I'm going to have you perform this little trick, or how, like, I mean, we even, like, they do these things like dressing them in clothing. Like, what?
And knife and fork. And it's just, people find that really charming. And I mean, I find it a little disgusting. It's like, okay, they've been doing fine without a knife and fork. I'm obviously very pro animal. So I just find that a little weird. And we're a little bit too about ourselves as humans to think that we have a better way of life.
I mean, bananas, they know how to peel a banana so much better than we do.
They do it the right way. The top is a handle. And then the bottom is perfect. I mean, we've been doing it wrong this whole time. They're smarter than us.
They're smarter than we are. Yeah, absolutely.
It's bananas how much smarter they are.
Boo! Drink.
Whatever. You know, I'm just monkeying around, Nessie.
Yeah, shenanigans, all the little monkey shines.
But that's the one of the two and I hate to use the word monkey primates because the next one is not a monkey, it's Rafiki, and he's a baboon. So another Disney movie that I love and that you love, Nessie, and then we go, and you know, like really enjoy it whenever the first scene and you see Rafiki, right? Showing Simba, right? So he's the kind of the keeper of the tradition and of the memory. He's a storyteller, but what is Rafiki? Also, he's silly. He giggles. He messes with Simba. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. But he's wise. He's also wise. And he remembers, he keeps the memory of the forest, right? Or of the jungle. Whenever Scar takes over and it's barren. Yeah, Pride Rock. He remembers when Mufasa reigned and that it was, you know, peaceful. And I love Aaron's comment, circle of life.
Yes. He plays this storyteller, this shamanic, wise monkey type role, and he's also like an
even has the staff, right, which is also a sign of a sage.
A sage, yes. And he uses it both to instruct Simba, but also to like whack him in the head.
Yes, left dad. Are you looking around over there, left dad?
I'm having a great day today, huh? I don't know if you can
talk to us a little about monkeys. You tell us a little about Planet of the Apes, if you don't mind, left dad, since you've seen it.
There's people in here who haven't?
I haven't.
A little bit.
Sorry. Miss Amy, understand right now, my face is killing me.
Oh.
I don't know if you can tell, it's swollen up.
You poor thing.
I'm sore. I was actually coming in to ask her, is it okay to take the acetaminophen?
Yes.
Okay.
He's not really feeling hanging out with the chat today.
I take that for my headaches, left dad, the acetaminophen. Yeah.
Well.
Yeah.
I'm hurting.
All right, baby. Yeah, it's fine.
I just want to make sure.
And thank you for the wonderful imitation of them. Thank you.
Thanks for the Vanat. Feel better, left dad?
Thank you.
Hello. Hey, we have to play the banana phone game.
There's also banana seats, like on a bike. There's all sorts of things banana related.
Okay, so getting back to Rafiki, that really is like playing onto the Toth aspect, because it's a baboon. It's a wise baboon. He's a keeper of the lore, the legends, the mystery. He's like the magician in the Pride. So he is able to, with his wisdom, his understanding, he's able to find Simba just by that I think it was a leaf, if I'm not mistaken.
Something, and it might have been some of his hair off his mane, something that then he is able to tell that Simba is alive. And right, what does he do? He doesn't go, I am a wise monkey or baboon who now. No, he goes he gets excited, right?
So excited, right?
Exactly like that kind of monkey playfulness, right? And he's and it literally means that they'll be saved, right? So he's worried about the continuation of the line of Simba's line, but also the piece for Pride Rock. Right. And so it's what's really why I think when we see wise monkeys and we think, but usually, you think of intelligence, you think of seriousness, but monkeys really show you that intelligence can be fun, and it can, you be silly as well. And, like with satire and parody, you have to be silly to be funny, right?
Absolutely.
So absolutely. And so Rafiki kind of has that going on. And he also makes a mention of being a monkey's uncle, which we kind of have in our notes here because we thought it was kind of silly. Well, I'll be a monkey's uncle, right? To be really surprised. It's kind of an interesting saying that's gotten into our our common speech.
Right.
And also monkey see, monkey do. That's another common one that we say. So it's kind of integrated itself into our language. And so you could almost say Rafiki, right? He felt like a monkey's uncle when he found out about Simba, because he was so surprised and excited, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah. And anything else that you wanted to say about Lion King other than it's like a great movie, live action, you need to go see it. Even the
Yeah, I actually saw the live action version, and as usual, I thought that the internet was over complaining. I thought it was wonderful. I mean, they kept pretty much the same format. It was just a remake, which is what people usually say they want. Everyone's already complaining that Mulan isn't going to be a musical. So okay, so you want a direct adaptation? There it is. So I thought that the Lion King live action was great, and I absolutely recommend it, especially if you are like me and you have kind of really enjoyed watching the Disney animated film, and sung all of the songs and had a Simba stuffed animal like I did. I was really into the Lion King, and my favorite character was actually Nala, because I thought that she was, of course, I always thought that she was so brave to leave, and to try and find something better for her homeland. So in many ways, if Nala wouldn't have found Simba, right, we wouldn't have had the plot wouldn't have progressed. And so even though Simba's obviously great and he's the main character, I think his girl Nala really makes things happen.
Right, absolutely, because she's holding it down back at home, Pride Rock. She and her mom and Simba's mom are just holding the fort down, and
yes,
yeah. So of course it's left to the lionesses to make.
And I believe the lionesses hunt, correct?
They are
remembering that? Yeah,
absolutely.
and the men just sit there and lick their mane, and it's it's like, okay, you're eating tonight because of your woman, but cool.
Oh yeah.
You can hunt together. Nature's weird.
Nature's weird, people.
But yeah, I think just maybe one more thing I want to emphasize about Rafiki that I mentioned a little bit earlier is talking about monkeys as the keeper of memory, as the keeper of storytelling, right? Rafiki really represents the oral tradition of Pride Rock, right? And if all of those lionesses, there's kind of also a hint that he is living for a long time, right? So even if all the lionesses pass away, Rafiki would remember Mufasa and remember Simba,
right?
Even though Simba has basically been banished and pretty much mostly forgotten about. Scar never talks about him because he is the rightful king, right? Yeah. And in many ways, also, he's a little bit of an uncle figure, right? Monkey's uncle, and that he's the one who raises up Simba to show, kind of like an uncle would show off their niece or nephew. And he's kind of a part of the family, but not the immediate family, just like an uncle. So it's kind of really interesting, the dynamic. So next time you're watching Lion King, really pay attention to Rafiki, because they're doing a lot with the wise baboon sage imagery there. And even though his scenes are quite short, I think that they say a lot about the magic of Lion King and the heavy associations with African storytelling.
Very much so, yes. Yeah. So, and on that note, those same types of stories made it to this side of the Atlantic. And even though they weren't able to be preserved like in their natural form, African Americans were still able to maintain that connection to their homeland through their folklore storytelling. And
absolutely.
Yes.
And even if it changed, it's just as legitimate storytelling, and it keeps the spirit of, maybe not the letter of the story, but the spirit of the story stays. And it allows for that connection. And it also allows for creating something new, like, New Orleans with has a lot of different things that are quite a mix of American culture and African culture. And it's kind of a blend and a balance, really, of the two.
Right. And one of the things that has trickled down into American, African American, and American culture brought from African storytelling traditions is the going down to the crossroads to make a deal. And anybody from the South or who's familiar with blues legend Robert Johnson went down to the crossroads to make a deal. And it wasn't like most people think. It wasn't to make
Mm-hmm. As usual, the Christians come in
as
and
usual,
they put their word on it and they say the devil, but that's not the original.
no, that's not the original. He goes down to make a deal with Papa Legba, who is an import from the African traditions of, oh my gosh, I don't want to mess this up. From the like the Loas, the spirit gods of African tradition. Let me see, Papa Legba. Gotta Google something real quick because I don't
And
want
while
to.
you're doing that, I'll just go ahead and say, so this deal that he made was he basically sold his soul, however you want to put it. That's also kind of a Christian interpretation, but he made a deal, right, to play the blues and be the best at playing the blues. But as we all know, blues fans know, the people that are the best at the blues are those that have heartache and trauma, right? And so his life is tragic, and because of that, he can play the blues. So once again, making a deal with a monkey that you get what you want, but it's not exactly what you want.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you're also, it's like learning how to reach enlightenment is through suffering. So for someone to be so well versed or like the best blues player, they had to go through so much suffering to achieve that goal.
Exactly, and that's this idea of sacrifice, right? Just like there's the common tale of I asked to be rich, and then so a genie or something grants your wish, and then you find out that you had a long lost relative who was rich and they died, and you inherit money. This kind of thing where it's not exactly what you wanted. And so yeah, it's very interesting. This kind of deal that, and if you've ever watched, if any in the audience have seen Supernatural, they've interpreted it in the demon at the crossroads kind of way. So they take the more Christian version, but in Supernatural, you bury a photo of yourself and some other things at a crossroads, and then whoever is the current crossroads demon, whoever has that position, or there are multiple ones, they come and you make a deal with them. And in the show Supernatural, you get 10 years to live and you get exactly what you want, but you are condemned to hell after that. So once again, not getting exactly, not getting it perfect exactly how you wanted.
Right. What I was trying to mention earlier was that the role of the monkeys as guardians of the crossroads or the gateways to the ancestors are found in like all the peoples of the Ivory Coast, which is, of course, is West Africa, where so many people were taken to be brought in the Middle Passage. And it's the god Gekri, who is that monkey god of the crossroads, who comes and is anthropomorphized from not man to monkey, but monkey to man as Papa Legba, who is always portrayed as an older man, with like maybe stooped with a like a staff or a cane. So that brings in the storytelling traditions with having the staff and being the guardian of the crossroads, or the person who is able to intercede with ancestors, or the guardian of the gateways, like the path between worlds. So,
and also for speaking specifically Zen Buddhism, there's this idea that it's not a straight, easy way to enlightenment. Sometimes you have to be a little crazy, like koans, which are these, like, if it's a famous koan that we all know is, if, what's the sound of one hand clapping? If a tree falls in the forest and there's no one around here, did it make a sound? These are koans where you're literally supposed to sit there and meditate on this nonsensical phrase that doesn't have an answer, and you find enlightenment. So that same thing with Sun Wukong. He's kind of like he has these clever little sayings and this and that, and so it's kind of out of chaos, right? You bring order and you bring enlightenment. And so the monkey having its wit and being able to basically, it's a little bit like a sphinx and it's a little bit like a riddler. Monkeys are sometimes in certain stories. They kind of befuddle other people through their words. They're very tricky. So I think there's a lot of that coming together.
Well, that's the thing about the monkeys. They've got the double speak going on. It's like they say one thing but they mean another. Or you have to really listen to what they're saying. You assume they're saying one thing when they're actually meaning another. So let's see what else we got here. We can always go right on to Planet of the Apes.
Sure. Yeah. So we both had to be, I haven't seen the movies at least, and we both had to be kind of briefed by a couple of people who've seen the movies. So this will be, I would say, for me, surface level analysis.
Right. Well, I've seen the original 1960s version, and I think it was 1967 that the original was released with a Charlton Heston version, which is like Monkey Jesus or whatever, Monkey Moses, Human Moses, what have you. He's just revising that role. But interesting, Moses may have actually had been related to Toth, but we'll get to that. His original name could have been Tutmosis, which Tutmosis is derived from Tot, and then Moses would have been the suffix of the name. So to differentiate himself from his Egyptian name, cut off Ta, and you're left with Moses. So, side note, sorry I even brought that up.
No, that's interesting. But from what I understand from Planet and the Apes, though, is there's this kind of the monkey or apes, right? They have language and the humans don't, and so rather than us differentiating ourselves as human with language, they're differentiating themselves as primates with language, and they see us as dirty, filthy creatures, right? Just like Victorion sees monkeys, right? And sees them as not maybe only mimicking things, but not having real intelligence, which is another, I think, misassociation with monkeys. Is they're just monkey see, monkey do, but they're not really internalizing these things.
Right. It really just turns that trope on its head, and it's a great way of looking at it. And this was obviously one of the greatest movies in the theater that when George was in his teenage and early adult years. So I mean, seriously, he saw it like probably 10 times. But I mean, it was a big thing that was really different to come out. And of course, given the times, it was probably saying a lot of things about inequality and colonialism in the United States.
And subjugation in general, thinking that one species should naturally be over the other, right? Right. And I think what's interesting too is this idea of kind of language as superiority, right? So I study a lot of the reasons that the Chinese are so respected is because of their long history of written language. I can look at bone fragments from 4000 BCE and read about half of it just because I know modern Chinese. So there's this continuation of knowledge production through writing, but we all know that there's another way, and that's through oral traditions, right? But so both are a type of language, and this reverence for the written language, I think, and the spoken language, is a interesting thing as well. And so you see, from what I gather with Planet of the Apes, there's this, it flips it on its head, right? And that the one thing that we thought made us better and superior, how superior does that really make us if we can lose it, right?
Right. Absolutely. And it's interesting how they would have that. They're like, oh, it's almost like they're thinking. It's almost like us, but not us, which is exactly how we feel about primates and higher apes ourselves. Oh, look how we want to anthropomorphize these creatures, and this movie completely turns that on its head. They are like anthropomorphizing or simian morphizing the human. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
And it's a very common trope to take something and reverse it on its head, right? That's a really common trope in literature, to make a point, right? And it's also using it's an allegory, right? Just like Animal Farm, George Orwell is using farm animals to talk about Stalinism, right? You have monkey, primates to talk about how crappy humans are, basically.
Yeah.
So it's definitely, then it's cool, and it was doing a lot of important work at the time because it allowed humans, I think, especially white people, to step back and look at how really good are we, how putting ourselves on this pedestal, how precarious is this situation, is this, are these circumstances, basically.
Right, absolutely. And it really speaks to like colonialism and looking at other cultures as being less, even though, say, we value like written things where oral traditions are not valued, and half the world's cultures is passed on through oral traditions, and that
Exactly.
just makes them no less valid and important than having them written and put in binding for people to read.
And you can even look at it as the apes are speaking a different language, right? You can even look at it that way, and that the supremacy of English, the British Empire forcing English on South Africa, on India, on the Caribbean, right? This idea that even if you can speak, if you don't speak exactly how I speak, right? I like to say Englishes. There are many different types of Englishes, right? It's not just about accent. It's even grammar. Like, I'm from the South, people speak differently, but it's another type of English, right? And so this, is another tie to colonialism, and that even if the humans were starting to speak again, if they weren't speaking exactly how the apes would want, then it would be seen as invalid. Yeah.
Yeah. And you can see like these same types of tropes in movies. Like, we'll go ahead and talk about King Kong.
Yes. Yeah. So I think one of the things I find interesting about King Kong is it is so iconic. Him literally grasping, once again, like a grasping monkey, like reaching to get to the top of the interstate, the
Empire State Building.
Empire State Building. Geez, totally gone. Literally has empire in it. But so, and it's a symbol of empire and a symbol of capitalism. And it's literally an other, right? And you could put the a homosexual, a person of color, someone of a different religion, however you want to put, you can put it on King Kong. And he's this other, and he's also this other that's come here to take your white women, right? He specifically grabs usually a blonde white woman and takes her up there. And it has a lot of sexual, perhaps not great eugenics kinds of connotations with the gene pool and purity, right, which of course are very uncomfortable topics, but topics that are obviously being played around with in King Kong. And I also think this it's literally taking what is closest to us, an ape, right, and just making it larger. But other than that, we've talked about earlier about how they're the closest thing to us when in the animal kingdom. And so it's literally just a large-sized human who's terrorizing, New York City.
It's also kind of looking at the like the being closer, our base animalistic type nature.
Yeah.
As what is like one of our biggest fears is that we are not civilized. That we that we are at our base nature, we are just, corrupt, and that we cannot ever move past.
Which is why I think also the sexualization comes in, lusty, right? Being lusty, not being able to control your urges. Tyrion is called a lusty, twisted monkey demon, right? This idea that
the complaint is that he likes to,
get it on,
get busy with it,
consensually or by paying money. And I think what's interesting about that too is that it's an impulse to grab the woman, right? But then some of the movies, they try and make it like they kind of have a thing going on where they not necessarily fall in love, but they try to make it a little bit better. I swerve a little left from that when that happens, because it's really about, I really see it as like the white heterosexual male's worst nightmare. That's how I see it. So she, in their mind, the white woman would be fighting for her life. How dare you, take me, and so to soften that always felt a little too apologetic of lean into the trope fully, and I think King Kong is really messing with that, playing with that trope of an other coming in and changing the gene pool, changing the species, really. It also shows how worried we are about possible cross species, mating, and that if they're this close to us DNA wise and body wise, maybe one day there would be some kind of human ape hybrid. I don't know, right? A lot of people think Bigfoot really is like some kind of hybrid from cavemen and who we evolved, beyond them, but they didn't.
Kelly had a really, really good point that I just wanted to highlight this. Yes, it was very overtly racist. And that is something that we really need to get
yes,
beyond. But unless we have intelligent conversations about it, we're never going to get there. So that's why we're talking about it here today.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it has, right, the monkeys have, these are terrible associations that have been put on people of color, being filthy, which, we're all very clean people, no matter color, what color we are. And also this idea, I think, of being, I don't endorse any of this, but being a lesser life form is how we see monkeys. And so to use that term, especially when a white person uses it, it is intentionally saying that we evolved beyond you, which is not at all how evolution works.
Yeah, these are some horrible, horrible concepts from the 18th century that were just, reinforced to reinforce that stereotype and allow one body of people to feel that they were entitled to subjugate another type of people because they were able to otherize them and make them subhuman in their mind, which is it's a horrible, horrible thing. So
yeah, and just how we're afraid that primates will become too much like us. There was especially a white male, but white women will also perpetuate racism. I don't want to just focus on men. White people in general, especially back then, right, is this this kind of fear of them being just like us, which, surprise, surprise, spoiler alert, they are, right? And that's really the whole irony of it, is that we're trying to make this distinction between us and monkeys, between white and black, when we're all human and we're all animals. We are just a different type of animal, even though we call ourselves human, right? Definitely. So, so King Kong is definitely playing with those tropes, and because of the times, I think it's very, very obvious what is going on there. And you can kind of take from it what you will. And if you do, you can obviously do a lot of good critical race studies analysis. Like you can Frantz Fanon it, right? You can go in and really criticize the way that King Kong is portrayed. And I've seen some academic articles that do that. So this is something in cinema studies that has absolutely been talked about. It's kind of where cinema studies and critical race studies intersect, where the theory and the practice kind of come together.
So two good films to study for that are going to be King Kong, obviously, and Planet of the Apes, which are really, really addressing those. It's like almost like a modernized version of the story, in a way, that's looking at it from like a cultural standpoint, as opposed to just like the noble savage who is tamed by the beautiful, by white culture.
Yes. And the taming, and the idea that it's we've all heard the angry black man, this idea that people of color are aggressive and need to be the respectability politics that we're unfortunately seeing right now that are just missing the point, right? I think that King Kong in a lot of ways shows that, and that we're so focused on taming others when we need to really look at ourselves.
Exactly.
So, yeah. But yeah, anyways, those are the two major Hollywood references. But I do have another Hollywood reference that is a little older is The Wizard of Oz. Of course, the Wicked Witch has flying demon monkeys. And so something I want to talk about is, why flying monkeys? Why do we see them everywhere? We have Sun Wukong, who can fly. They fly through the trees, kind of, right? There's this kind of agile flying kind of aspect that's associated.
One thing Yeah, I think that's one thing that we're looking at from like an evolutionary standpoint, because we um, left that nature behind, that freedom of being, part of the forest and part of nature and part of, to have our own like different type of society. And you look back on the, the primates or whatever as that part of our past, kind of like maybe like a Garden of Eden type situation where we came from that, but we were one with nature at the time. We were much more in tune with the natural world, and we have left that freedom behind to form more permanent, societies and attachments. So maybe the idea of flying is that freedom that we have lost by divorcing ourselves from the natural world.
Absolutely, yeah, that freeing. And also I think it goes with monkeys being powerful. We see that with Sun Wukong, that they're smart, but they're also powerful. And it's not necessarily brute strength. It's for Sun Wukong, it's because he literally found enlightenment, right? So he used his smarts to meditate and to achieve a Buddhahood, basically, especially at the end of the story, he essentially becomes a Buddha. And so what I find, I think, most interesting about the flying monkeys in The Wizard of Oz is that they do the Wicked Witch's bidding. You don't really see any thought process. She tells them to do something, they giggle, and then they fly off, right? So they're
Right.
they're presumed evil because they're working for the Wicked Witch. But what if they're under a spell?
Yeah, what if she's got their Monkey King in prison somewhere? Maybe she's got their
Yeah.
little flying Monkey King is
Just
jailed
like
up.
Wicked gives us kind of another look at the Wicked Witch, it'd be nice if we had another look at the monkeys. Maybe they were enslaved, or maybe they are being mind controlled, or maybe they're not really approving of any of this and they just need some money to buy bananas. We don't know.
Bananas. It's bananas.
They're getting paid in bananas. But that's what I find interesting, is because they're working for the Wicked Witch, we assume they're evil, twisted demon monkeys, but we really don't have any evidence of that beyond the fact that they carry out the Wicked Witch's orders.
Correct. They're not able to voice, their thoughts, their opinions. They're just seen as like an adjacent, or as an extension of the will of the Wicked Witch.
And they're also dressed like little bellboys, aren't they, if I remember correctly?
What is up with putting these
Basically,
little
they love it's this trope of little suits on monkeys is just so huge. It's everywhere. So I guess they find monkeys in humans' clothes so funny with the little hat and everything. I guess it's part of the entertainment quality kind of that we associate with them. But in this case, they look like they're in little servants' uniforms, right?
They don't get their little uniform on. They're all part of the monkey battalion. This is their uniform.
I wonder if they have a handbook and it has like the employee clothing kind of requirements. Yeah.
He's got a dress code if you want to.
Yes, the dress code. That's what I meant. The dress code. Yes, requirements for that. So I find that interesting. Once again, we see flying monkeys. We see them clothed. And in this case, they're evil, but they kind of like they kind of giggle at things a little, or cackle at things, if we want to put like the evil kind of aspect on it.
Right. Like at the time, I think that they were supposed to be like these scary little creatures that, were supposed to frighten the children, or they're like, but now just kind of just looking at them from our modern lens, we're looking at them and they're like, those little monkey suits are kind of cheesy. So we've seen it really is kind of cute. And
the first time I saw it, I was 6 and it scared the crap out of me. And then the next time I saw it, it didn't. I think, especially if you had watched it when it came out, those were well-trained monkeys for the time. They didn't have visual effects. So they had to, it's impressive that they trained these monkeys to do all of this. It also shows their intelligence, right? And their ability to pick up on what you want them to do. And so I think, it'd be nice. I would like to look a little, if there's any information, maybe look a little into how they trained the monkeys for the movies. That might be interesting, because that human monkey interaction they're basically actors, in that case.
Right.
And
Right. There's like, I mean, a long history of animal, working with training, working with monkeys, working with primates to train them to do things like this. Very long history. So, how they do that, it would be really fascinating to, dive into maybe another day.
Yes. But if you're ready to move on, Nessie, though, I would like to mention Curious George.
Absolutely, because I know
Yes.
it's very near and dear to your heart.
Yes, I grew up reading Curious George, watching the shows, the reruns, obviously, because it first came out in the mid '80s. So I was watching in the late '90s reruns. All the Curious George merch. I loved getting the little, Curious George stuffed animal and the. I think is it a yellow? He has a big hat on. I don't remember if it's yellow or if he has a yellow jacket. But the man in the hat.
It's the safari hat that he wears. Is that
he wears some? His owner or his pet parent has some kind of hat on, but as his zookeeper, yeah. And what's interesting, I mean, curious, it's literally in the name, and we've been talking about the intelligence and the curiosity of monkeys. And so really Curious George is about seeing the world through this very curious little monkey's eyes. And it's so exciting for kids and fun. And like I said, kids just love monkeys. There's something about it that, they're fun. And so Curious George is kind of always getting into trouble, but it's in a cute way. And
it's the thing where his curiosity gets him in trouble.
Yeah, curiosity kills the monkey kind of thing.
Well, hopefully it doesn't kill the monkey, but it certainly kills the inventors.
But so what's great about...
And it teaches kids, too, that it's okay to be questioning and curious about things in your environment so long as you're able to do it in, a safe way.
Manner.
Safe manner.
Yeah. And what I love about Curious George is since the first book was written in the 40s, there are generations and generations of people who love Curious George, So it's great. You have kids now reading Curious George, but you could have had kids in the 50s, 60s, and 70s also reading Curious George. So I think that's what's great, is that something about that character has just charmed people, and he hasn't gone away. If anything, he's been renewed every 15 to 20 years or so. Yeah, they do something.
I really just love that reference in the movie in Forrest Gump, where when Forrest was a little child, his mom was reading him the stories of Curious George. And then later he was also reading those same stories to his son. It's like, oh, look, it's my favorite book. So, yeah. And it's just really cool how...
Jordy Jedi has an interesting question about what about the band, like the monkeys. I'm guessing he's talking about the monkeys.
Oh,
I totally forgot about that. My mom, she was like, had a super big crush on the monkeys growing up. So that was like one of her first celebrity crushes, was on one of the monkeys. And she also liked the Beach Boys. So that kind of studio band kind of thing.
It was kind of like America's version of like a boy band. Like they were like intentionally put together as this ensemble. They were going to have they had this television show, but they also did recordings. So it's kind of sort of a little cheesy, but they also, I mean, it was a thing back in the 60s. It was a thing because you had the monkeys, you had like the Partridge Family, this was kind of a thing on television. But yeah, and what the monkeys would do as a band, as part of their thing, they would always find themselves in some type of kooky little adventure that they never really got in big trouble for, but they always were able to get themselves out of it by the end of the show. So yeah, they were very aptly named as mischievous mischievous musicians who are just traveling around.
Yeah, and that was the beginning of a trope that is still going. I know there was this, I don't know if it was Nickelodeon or Disney, and I was too old for this, but they had this, there was a band and there were 5 guys in it, and they did it for the show. They were singing for the show, and then they legit became a band and started, producing albums. So it kind of started this trend of having a TV band, right, that then becomes kind of an actual band. So, back then people would actually get, a vinyl of the monkeys, right?
Right. So, yeah. I had several of them. little 45s.
My parents showed me how to use one. I'm very proud. A millennial, and who's not necessarily a hipster, but can use vinyl.
So like, Davy Jones, he was like this. He was like the face, the front man. He was the posh guy from London. He was so posh, and it was very swinging 60s kind of thing. And the drummer, and let's see, there's like a guitar player, and then there's one guy who was just really, really, really goofy, who just like shake the maracas. There's always like the Ringo in the group. So it was really very loose.
I love always the Ringo. I love that saying that's so mean that Ringo isn't even the best drummer in the Beatles. So
right?
Mean. But yeah, I totally forgot about the monkeys, though. I knew I would forget something in our section about pop culture and media references. I mean, I'm sure the people watching can think of 5 more examples of monkeys in popular culture.
I know. It's like when we were talking last night. It's like the more we would talk, the more we would come across different things. So
absolutely, yeah. And I think one more thing that I actually thought of, though, was Temple Run, which I don't know if you ever played. It was huge a while ago on a mobile game, and you are
I played
like
Donkey Kong.
Oh, you played, Donkey Kong. My God, how could we forget? Donkey Kong. I played Donkey Kong on Nintendo 64, and I would always pick him as a character in Super Smash Bros. So yeah, there's Donkey Kong, but in Temple Run, you're being chased by 3 devil monkeys, basically. I think they're literally called evil demon monkeys, like is the exact way that it is. And so they're like protecting this temple, and you're stealing from the temple as kind of a treasure hunter figure, and you're running away from them, and you have to watch out the obstacles. And when you lose is when they catch you. So, or you trip, and then because of that, you slow down and they catch you. So this kind of being pursued by evil monkeys is also a thing.
Yeah. And let's see, what was the Powerpuff
and I also thought about Mojo Jojo.
Jojo from the Powerpuff
Of course, from the Powerpuff Girls, because he was smart because he had been experimented on, right? And then went evil, right? Had this dark side. And they even have that one episode called, I believe they called it, he gets with him and one of the other villains, I think it was the Amoeba Boys, and they make this thing called the Beatles, right? And it's a Beatles reference. And so they do all sorts of stuff with Mojo Jojo that I think is hilarious, right? And he is a bad guy, but he's a little gray area. He kind of, he never, you always kind of wonder if he really wants to defeat them, because he gets really close to the edge a couple of times in a couple of episodes, and he doesn't. So there's also this idea of monkeys being gray area. They can go one way or the other depending on the circumstances.
Absolutely. Yep. Well, that's a great note to end on. So, Amy, is there anything else you wanted to get into, get out there before we, sign off? I
don't think so. I guess one more shameless plug. I'm going to be writing in detail. I'm doing final edits on my essay that's in detail specifically about Tyrion as Sun Wukong parallels. And I'll get into a lot more detail than obviously I was able to in this stream. So this is a little bit of a hype for my upcoming premiere essay. So I'm hoping that you guys will enjoy it. And I'm trying to write it how I write academically, even if my professor is the only one reading it, which is you assume that your audience knows nothing about Chinese literature. So that's how I'm writing it. And I'm hoping that you guys will learn something about Chinese literature. And I'm hoping, Nessie, that you and I in the future can talk about peaches, because we were talking about the peach of immortality and Renly's peach, and there's absolutely something there going on with Hindu mythology.
Absolutely. So, yes, absolutely. We'll get into that, definitely.
So stay tuned is all I can say there.
Stay tuned. More is coming back. And I'm hoping
keep reading, as George says.
And I'd really like, when the new live action Mulan comes out, I'd really like to have you and maybe a couple other really smart young ladies on to, pick your brains about your thoughts about that. So
absolutely. I'm just so excited for Mulan. It was obviously my favorite Disney movie growing up. So I'm going to have a lot of fun with that, talking a lot about not just about the storyline, but I've read the original poem about Mulan in Chinese. So I can talk
Oh.
about the differences and what Disney changed. And so a lot of people might be interested in that too.
Yep. Well, I know I certainly am. And I can't wait to have you back. So,
I can't wait to be back.
and I'm looking forward to this essay that you've got coming out. I'm looking forward to seeing or listening to your thoughts tomorrow on John's stream. So guys, tomorrow it's 2
Eastern.
2 Eastern. Yep.
2 Eastern.
Same time tomorrow on the John Webster Film Channel. They are going to be discussing Little Women. One great, wonderful movie. If you have not seen it, you need to watch that. I see you, Alicia. I see you, girl.
Yeah.
I'll hit you up on that. Trust me.
That sounds wonderful. We would have a great discussion. Absolutely.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
we'll make a man out of ourselves.
Yes, OK is going to be coming on the channel in an upcoming episode as well. I'm going to go ahead and hype that now. I've got the next 2 installments planned for the Magical Menagerie. I'm going to do I'm going to get what I like to call the Tolkien gang together, and we're going to have a Draken thing from, we're going to just be doing an in-depth dive on Tolkien and all of Tolkien's dragons, which in the initial Dragon stream, that was a whole page that we never even really were able to dive into. And there's just so much there. And if you've got, some of the best experts in the fandom who are willing to come on your channel and talk about this, why wouldn't you invite them? So that's going to be coming up on July 1st, 2 weeks. That'll be 2 weeks from today. And 2 weeks after that, I've got the wonderful Alicia Kingston has graced my channel with her presence. She's going to be coming on, and we're going to be discussing the Sphinx. So look forward to that.
John had a question about the preferred translation. One that is pretty long established is the one by, I was just looking this up to make sure, the one by WJF, known as Bill Jenner, so Jenner. That's one of the older translations, but I think it still holds up pretty well. And the problem with Journey to the West is it's in this weird half classical, half modern Chinese fate. Like the last 2 dynasties of China, the Chinese language is really shifting. So it takes really specially trained people to translate this. And I think Jenner does as good of a job as you could have done when he was doing this in the 60s without, the crazy tools that we have now with internet and everything. So I would say Jenner's translation to start, and I'm hoping a better one will come out that's a little bit more updated. And what's great is I can search it has been completely digitized in Chinese. So you can, if you did speak Chinese, you could Command F it and find certain parts of the story. So it's become a lot easier for translators to work on this because of technology. But that's a really good question, John. I just wanted to mention that before we ended. So
yes, Alicia, it's sphinxes. Absolutely. Sphinxes. Yes, the riddle is the Sphinx, not the Riddler.
The Sphinx is
the
riddle?
Yeah.
Not the Riddler. Yeah.
Yeah. Really looking forward to it. There's so much to dive into there, and I just can't wait to talk to Alicia. She's fabulous. She's been on the
I've seen her on Lady Diligence's channel, also known as I believe also known as Black Wildling, and just great analysis. I absolutely look forward to seeing AK on your channel. That's going to be great.
All the Mad Queens are great. Subscribe to them all. All right, guys. So I think that's going to wrap it up. I appreciate you spending your afternoon with Amy and I today. I hope you learned a little something. I hope you enjoyed yourself. Hope we gave you a little something to think about. So until next time, I need to come up with a really cool catchphrase. So we'll do a poll for that later. Amy, what do you say?
Oh,
until next time, thank you and come again. And we'll see you real soon. Bye.